Hi there, and these comments are for one of my online TOEFL course students. I'm getting ready to listen to your integrated speaking practice test, and I am Michael from OTC, OnlineTOEFLCourse.com. So let's take a look at the email here. You say, "Hi Michael, I hope you feel better after your second dose of the coronavirus vaccine. I am still not sure about getting it because of the side effects." Well, let's just get it out there. First of all, get the shot. I believe it's important to get the coronavirus vaccine. Now, I will share with you my story. I will share with you my wife's story about getting the vaccine. You can see my vaccination record. I got my first vaccine on March 2nd, the Pfizer dose, first Pfizer dose. Then I got my second dose this week on Tuesday, March 23rd. Personally, here's what happened to me. So the first time I got the dose, I had 4 days of hell. I really did not feel good at all, period. Right? Now, the second time I took the dose, I still had a lot of side effects. I did not feel good, but I only had about 2 days of hell. So then you have 4 days plus 2, you got 6. So for me, I felt like I had the flu for about 6 days. That's how I felt. What were my symptoms? Uh, when I got the shot on Tuesday, I went to bed Tuesday night. I could not sleep at all. I was shaking so much. I was just shaking in the bed. I started to hyperventilate like that. I was having trouble breathing, not because my lungs were blocked. I was just shaking so much. And as I was shaking, I was burning calories, and it was making it difficult for me to breathe because I needed to take in enough oxygen to keep shaking. I couldn't stop the shaking. I had a really intense headache, very, very, very difficult headache. It was really tough to teach my classes on Wednesday, so what I did is I cut every class down to 30 minutes instead of an hour when I was doing my Zoom classes. I had a lot of fatigue. I had aches in my body, my muscles. Every time I coughed, I started to get a cough from the virus. When I coughed, it really made the front of my head hurt a lot. So those were my symptoms. Now, my wife, she had similar flu-like symptoms on the first dose for maybe 3 days. But my wife, on her second dose of the Pfizer shot, she had really no symptoms other than a sore arm. I get it. The arm's going to be sore. I get the flu shot every year. I understand that. My arm is still sore right now. I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me in the least. I expect my arm to be sore. Now, my parents got the Pfizer vaccine. They had zero side effects. My neighbors, right? There's one, two, three. There's four people in their family. They all got the Pfizer dose for the coronavirus vaccine, and 2 people had flu-like symptoms and 2 didn't. But the whole family, when they got their first shot, they had no symptoms, and then 2 out of 4 people had flu-like symptoms after the second shot. So that's it. I think it's about 50 to 52% of the population, they have flu-like symptoms after the second shot, right? So that's my own opinion is. Now remember, I'm not a doctor. Don't take what I'm saying as scientific or anything like that. It's my opinion that the benefits of getting the vaccine outweigh the negatives. As you guys know from YouTube, 2 family members died in my family, right? My wife's sister died at age 42 because of the virus. She died on June 4th. And then my wife's cousin also died of the coronavirus in February. He was 47 years old. So in my opinion, I would rather go through these side effects, as terrible as they are, as uncomfortable as they are. I'd rather go through the side effects than risk getting the coronavirus again. And I had it in November. I would rather risk not getting the virus again so I don't pass it to anybody else because it could kill me or somebody else. So that's my own opinion. Now, anybody at YouTube, if you guys want to make comments below in your opinion, Is the coronavirus safe? Do you believe it's safe? What has happened in your family with those family members who have taken the virus, who have taken the vaccine? Sorry, I misspoke. Did they experience any side effects or not? So you guys can create your own debate below the video. Go for it. Remember, I just told you my story. I'm not drawing conclusions on what's going to happen to you or anything like that. I'm just telling you what happened when I got vaccine dose number 1 and vaccine dose number 2. All right? So let's keep on going here. Let's get to your speaking practice. No, wait a minute. I forgot to read one thing here. I'm sending my integrated speaking practice test for question number 3. Is it true that we should be spending more time speaking about the lecture than from the reading? I don't know. I don't any idea. I mean, to me, you should talk about the reading at least so we have some context and then we can understand how the lecture relates to it. Does that make sense? Well, what does that mean exactly? I don't know what it means. Maybe you should speak about 15 to 20 seconds about the reading passage, then you should spend the rest of your time talking about the lecture. Right? So I think a bad strategy would be to totally ignore the reading passage. That I would not do. Okay, so let's get started. Let's see how you did here.
The article is about primary effect, which is a tendency people usually have to judge a person based on their first impression.
Okay.
In the lecture, the professor talks.
Okay, let's go back to the...
The article is about primary effect, which is a
had a little trouble. So the article is about
tendency people usually have to judge a person based on their first impression. In the lecture, the professor talks about the time when he'd worked for a company as a research assistant.
Now, what I would do there is the reading talks about a concept called primacy effect, if that's what you said, and then the speaker in the lecture gives an extended example or 2 examples to further illustrate the idea. Then you say, first of all, according to the reading passage, the primary effect is described as blah, blah, blah. Explain that maybe in 10 or 15 seconds. Second of all, the speaker continues to elaborate on that idea by presenting 2 examples. Then you go on and talk about that.
So the first week, the professor did a really good job in the lab, and he got a really good impression with his boss. And after that, the professor says he didn't do anything meaningful for the company, but his boss kept saying that he was the best employee in the company. Moreover, the professor also mentions that his coworker didn't have the same luck because the first week she did a lot of mistakes that cost a lot of money for the.
So the first thing she did or she made? Let me see what you said.
The professor also mentions that his coworker didn't have the same luck because the first week she did a lot of mistakes that.
No, she made a lot of mistakes. So go to Google and review your use of make versus do. Put make versus do idiomatic uses in English. Something like that. And then I think this stuff is a little bit complicated, but I'm going to look at do as being completing or performing an action, and then make as creating or constructing something. That's how I would look at that. I would look at it kind of like that. That would be my opinion on that. Now you can study in Google and look at the 2 words and the uses of them in a little more detail. So that's what I would do there.
It cost a lot of money for the company. Even though she improved a lot, his boss kept saying that she was not reliable after death.
Okay. Okay, so overall, I think you're at least in the 3 range here. Let me listen to it one more time.
The article is about primary effect, which is a tendency people usually have to judge a person based on their first impression. In the lecture, the professor talks about the time when
Now, if that's all you're going to say about the reading, right, just make sure you didn't leave out any important points. But if that was the emphasis of the reading and the academic concept, then that's fine. So that's maybe Why I was going to listen to without stopping. I apologize, but that would be my comment on
He
that.
worked for a company as a research assistant. So the first week, the professor did a really good job in the lab, and he got a really good impression with his boss. And after that, the professor says he didn't do anything meaningful for the company, but his boss kept saying that he was the best employee in the company. Moreover, the professor also mentions that his coworker didn't have the same luck because the first week she did a lot of mistakes that cost a lot of money for the company. Even though she improved a lot, his boss kept saying that she was not reliable after that.
And when you say that at the end, you might want to say because the one worker had created a bad first impression, the supervisor thought from then on that the worker was no longer a reliable employee. So I think that you need to make sure that implicitly or explicitly you kind of tie that example back to the definition you've already explained. We need to see how the lecture kind of relates to the information already explained. So you could have done a little bit better job at integrating those two sources, maybe especially when you get near the end in the conclusion there. All right, so your score here, let me take a look at it. So let's go to the integrated speaking skills here. I like how you're comfortable speaking. You have a pretty good speaking speed. And did you guys know anybody at YouTube here that you need to be able to speak between 100 and 150 words a minute? Maybe even closer to 200. If you can speak that quickly, that tells me you have good fluidity of response. So anybody at YouTube, how many words can you speak in a minute naturally? You say, well, Michael, I can do 50. I'm going to say, well, you got big trouble, my friend. Not going to score high on the TOEFL speaking. That's a fact. Okay, so let's see here. 3. I'm going to put you at, I think it's a pretty solid response. I'm going to put you at 23 to 25 points out of 30 on this practice test.